Peter Tosh, an icon, a man whose lyrics were sharper than a double-edged sword. Peter Tosh, the stepping razor, whose life was cut short. Peter Tosh, the man who brandished an M16 guitar, died by the hands holding a handgun. An ironic and contradicting case of poetic justice not deserved. Here's the story of how Peter Tosh was killed. September 11, or 9/11, a date that resonates because of the bombing of the World Trade Center in 2001. But 9/11, 1987 has its own sounds of horror. That night, Peter Tosh was at home with friends and family when serenity turned to screams. But first, the serenity. At 7:30 p.m., Peter Tosh and his spouse, Marlene Brown, were hosting a movie night, entertaining friends. That friend list included Wilton Brown and Michael Robinson, while popular JBC disc jockey and radio broadcaster Jeff Dixon, aka Free Eye, and his wife were on their way to Peter Tosh's BARBICAN home. But the gunmen got there first, and this is where serenity turned screams. 7 people shot, 3 fatally, and Peter Tosh was one of them. 3 gunmen broke into the house. The chief bearer of arms was a man whom Peter Tosh knew too well. Dennis LOBBAN, otherwise called LEPPO. LEPPO was an ex-convict, and Peter Tosh provided a new lease of life for LEPPO after he was released from prison. Peter Tosh gave him a job at his home in Barbican, nurtured him, and gave him a place to sleep. But in his own prophetic words, Peter Tosh warned, "Sorry for MAWGA dog, him turn round bite you." And that proved to be true when LEPPO, a familiar friend, turned familiar foe. LEPPO, with his 2 cronies, entered Peter Tosh's home and at gunpoint told him to belly it. That means to lay down on their faces. Marlene Brown, one of the 3 survivors, recalls that LEPPO demanded US money because he knew Peter Tosh had just returned from the USA, so he expected a lot of US dollars to be around. But that wasn't the case. Peter Tosh declared there was no money in the house, but LEPPO got irate, and according to Marlene, he began blaming her, saying Peter Tosh gave her too much power and she was responsible for Peter Tosh not being able to take care of him. When both Marlene and Peter Tosh disagreed with LEPPO's remarks, LEPPO ordered his fellow gunmen to step to Peter Tosh and disarm him. Well, I don't know how you gonna disarm a man who was laying on the ground face down, because Peter Tosh was there helpless and harmless. But in any event, they stepped to him. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. One of the gunmen opened it and saw Free Eye, the JBC broadcaster, and his wife. Now, they were violently pulled in and ordered to lay face down on the floor as well. They were robbed of their jewelry and other personal items. Then, the Wild Wild West escapade started. LEPPO and his crew came in hot and started to fire wildly at his unarmed victims. The quiet neighborhood was disturbed by the echoing sounds of deadly gunfire. When the smoke cleared, Wilton Brown, Free Eye, and Peter Tosh were dead. Peter Tosh motionless, killed in cold blood. Marlene Brown was shot in the head, but she survived. But like Beyonce, she was a child of destiny, because when the gunmen were about to leave, they realized she wasn't dead and was about to shoot. But LEPPO grabbed them and said, "Come, she's dead already." Marlene was saved and became a key witness in the court case. The other survivors were Michael Robinson, Santa Davis, who was Peter Tosh's drummer and also his close friend. Free Eye's wife was the other of the 4 survivors. Years later, Marlene Brown accused Santa Davis, who was shot in his shoulder, of refusing to help take Peter Tosh to the hospital. This is what she had to say in an interview with Muta Baruka on The Cutting Edge in 2015.
I said, Lord, when I look now, I say Santa Davis Jeep. So I say, wait, come let me never remember, I say Santa in the house, you know. We won't go to Santa, I say Santa, Peter alive. Help me now, we can't save Peter, you know. Don't drive off and leave us. Help me carry Peter go hospital now. Santa say, you know, so I'm not helping him, come get shot, you know. A straight hospital, me have a Mali, I'm not helping him, come get shot. That is the exact word that Santa used to us. I say, I want a man to drive off the Jeep, now hang on the Jeep, so try to stop Santa and say, nah, stop.
But Santa Davis, also in an interview in 2015 with Muta Baruka, rubbished those claims.
The only conversation me and I have, you know, that night there, you know, was after the whole incident, you know, and everyone, I mean, me get up, and the only thing she said to me was, the only thing me remember she said to me, and that was the only time me and I have a conversation, was, yeah, all right. I said, no, man, I get shot. I'm going to go to the hospital because I don't feel right, you know, because them time, my whole left side damage up. You see me, I say, no man, all them things. I think so, I lose all my hand and all them things. The way it feel, you understand? Because I never get shot yet, so I don't really know how to explain when a man gets shot. I just feel like, you know what I mean? So I feel so, I still have my hand and them thing there. But at the same time, my breath start get away. I mean, my breathing start get away. Because I know say something right. I'm going to start like a shot breath and all them thing there. Yeah. So I say, watch out. Why better? I'm just try get my way to the hospital. I don't want to have no conversation. So when me hear she say to you on the interview, say she asked me to carry people to the hospital, and me said no, me not carry nobody and all them kind of thing there. And then she'll dramatize it by say, oh, she hold on the vehicle and me a driver. And Bridget, when me go, kind of one never want to go to the door, you know. When me go to the door, no one out there, you know. Yeah. You understand? Me I say, and I hobble, you know, because I remember when me reach a UC, you know. Remember me I drive a stick shift vehicle, you know. In the state of me, you know, right?
With the shot now, yo.
And with the shot in me, when me reach a UC, me forget about vehicle, me just roll out of the vehicle and drop the man, you know. That was the last thing, you know. That means if me never did do that, you know, wouldn't they have talked to you today, you know. When no one get injured them kind of way, they can't just jump and lift them up, so because more time, you know, you can do more damage than good when someone get injured. If a man get a shot in foot or a broke foot or a broken and them thing there, then you can't carry a man because it's not a real life-threatening thing. Yeah. But when a man get shot up them kind of way and damage them way there, you can't just go take up people because you might do more damage to them. You see me I say?
But whatever happened, the real culprit was LEPPO, and he was held after a confession from the getaway driver who transported LEPPO and his crew to and from the scene. Steve Russell, a taxi driver, was taken into custody, and he confessed that before the murders, LEPPO approached him to take him and his crew to Peter Tosh's house. Russell said he wasn't told for what reason, but he met them at the Carib Theatre in Crossroads and took them to Peter Tosh home and waited. In his statement, Russell said shortly after they arrived, he heard gunshots and then saw LEPPO and the other men run into the car, shouting for him to drive. They got in and he drove back to Crossroads, where LEPPO and his gang got out and ran. The next morning, September 12, 1987, Russell said he heard the news that Peter Tosh was shot and killed along with two others. Consequently, Steve Russell, the driver, was charged in connection with the killing of Peter Tosh, Free Eye, and Wilton Brown. However, his case was thrown out as a no-case submission and he walked out of court a free man in 1988. As for LEPPO, he was brought to the police by a Catholic priest, but LEPPO refused to give the names of the two men who accompanied him to the incident. He was charged for the murders and shootings. Marlene Brown, who survived after being shot in the head, gave evidence of the ordeal which led to the death of her spouse, Peter Tosh, and two others. However, LEPPO launched a defense based on an alibi, saying Marlene Brown was carrying a malice and that she always accused him of being a liar and news carrier to Peter Tosh. But there was to be equal rights and justice for Peter Tosh and his friends, as LEPPO was found guilty. His defense was thrown out and he was convicted to life imprisonment in 1988 for 3 counts of murder. He appealed the ruling on June 11, 1991, but that appeal was overruled. The Court of Appeal established that a powerful case was made out against the applicant which fully supports his conviction on each of the 3 counts of murder. Dennis LEPPO LOBBAN is still behind the bars, serving his life sentence at the Tower Hill Correctional Facility, formerly General Penitentiary. Justice served. But though he was taken away, Peter Tosh and his legacy are here to stay. His music and message live on in the minds and hearts of people across the world. Peter Tosh, the STEPPIN raiser, a revolutionary and an inspiration to many, including this channel, appropriately named Reggae Myelitis in his honor as we continue to build on his legacy.
Reggae Myelitis. This is button the people. Make sure you like this.